Here we go, guys. So everyone is doing kind of look back footage on the year. I'm going to do the same. We're going to do a tier list of the most memorable cards. So all of these cards are memorable. We've got 50 of them to rank. You can see the ranks on the tier list. We've got game defining. It's like we look back in 10 years, we'll still remember the card. All the way through to memorable, still memorable, but maybe we'll forget it over time. That's the way I look at it. I can only put 10 cards in each tier, and I'm going to do this rapid fire, right? I'm going to do this really quickly. So I might have to move things around at the end, but we're going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. I've tried to think of as many metrics as possible, but I think the key metrics are how hyped was the card, how much did we use it, but there's also cards on here that are memorable for all the wrong reasons as well. You'll see as we go. Guys, if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe, whether you agree with my opinion or not. Like the video, leave a comment as we go. And yeah, drop a sub, guys. We're like really close to 1,100 subs. I'd love to hit that before the end of the year. I think we're less than 20 away from it. So, you know, we're a small channel, we're growing. Every bit of support helps. Anyway, that's enough self-promo. Let's get onto it. First card is Amethyst Smush Parker. You know, you had the Trey Burke base Pro 2. He was a card that was being used amongst the meta of diamonds and pink diamonds, and he could compete. He really could. I'm going to put him in very memorable for now. If anything, he might move up, but I'm going to leave him there for now. Amethyst Allen Houston is next. I'm going to put him in extremely memorable just because of how OP he was. He was the first real kind of elite shooting card in the game, outside of maybe Paul Pierce, who was the unlimited reward. But he started to define the meta. He was the first card that really defined the meta that we've reached now. Next up, we've got Diamond AK. I never ran this card, but I ran into him a lot. Again, he was a card that punched above his weight. 3 to 4 months people had this Diamond in their lineup. I'm going to put him in memorable because I think he might have been a bit overshadowed by the later AKs, but people forget how OP he was for the time. Next up, we've got Bailey Howell, the Amethyst. Again, another early card in the game. I used to do like budget lists, top 10 budget cards. Bailey Howell was top of that list for 2 or 3 weeks at one point. I think he's very memorable, potentially higher, but I'm going to put him in very memorable for now. I also love the Dark Matter Bailey, just for what it's worth. Next up, we've got Baron Davis. Now, this is the first interesting one because he has to be in one of the top 2 tiers. The reason being, he did define the game in a certain way. He defined the game in the way that 2K built something up that sounded really good and let us down at the last moment, which is something they did time and time again. Shout out to Glitch Reality. Baron Davis was the first card that did that. He is memorable. We all did nothing else for 3 or 4 weeks. I'm going to put him in Legendary, but there is a real argument for him to be game defining, and I might move him up. Next up, we've got Dark Matter Warped Reality Ben Simmons. He is game defining. He was the first elite OP point guard that was oversized with an elite jump shot that could do everything. He defined the meta as it is right now. Ben Simmons has to be considered game defining. I was reluctant to put him in here because you'll see this as a trend. There are some cards that you might expect in game defining that I'm not going to put in there because I think the similar card was game defining last year, therefore less so this year, right? This is not massively different to the Prime Ben Simmons. The reason I've left him in here is because his jump shot is just so elite. He was so much better than the Prime one from last year. Next up, we've got Bill Russell. This is a weird one because the community was really hyped at the time, but it dropped off very quickly, the hype. I feel like when Moses Malone came out, the limited reward, this card kind of lost its shine and people started talking about, stopped talking about it instantly. I'm going to put him in extremely memorable, but he could move up. There was a bit of hype when he came out. Let's see, Blake Griffin. This was a real reality check for a lot of people, which led to another card being way hyped, which was the following level 40 reward. I think people kind of slept on Steph Curry, and I think people realized, oh, you know, I should have gone and got Steph if I didn't. And then people were like, oh, but it's Blake this season. I'm not really fussed about that. People didn't realize how OP this Blake was, guys. He's in one of the top 2. I'm going to put him in Legendary for now. Absolutely, he could be game defining. Absolutely. First elite stretch 5 in the game. Blake was unstoppable, guys. He's a regret of mine that I didn't go and get him. Pink Diamond Bol, game defining. I don't understand how he was 95 overall. He was the best card in the game running with Dark Matters as a 95 overall. It made no sense, but that's where he goes. Now we've got the Invincible Bol. This is similar to the Ben, right? The token market Bol last year was very similar to this card. I think the next gen meta just puts him over the top. I think that's what separates him from last year because he's so OP on next gen. He's, you know, OP on current gen as well, but he is so OP on next gen that he has to go into game defining. 2 Bols in the top tier. Next up, we've got Amethyst Boris Diaw. He was another card that was, you know, top 5 in my budget list for 6-8 weeks. Very similar to kind of the Bailey Howell. I'm going to put them side by side. I think they were my 3 and 4 at one point. Next up, we've got Dark Matter Cade. Now, to me, guys, this is going to be an unpopular opinion. This is the best card in the game. On current gen, it's the best card in the game. He's 6'8", he's a Curry sliding base 98, point guard demon. He is incredible, and you know, similar to the kind of LaMelo Ball from last year, I think. That's kind of how I see Cade. I don't know where to put him. I'm going to put him in extremely memorable. Maybe it's a bit of bias, but this is the most fun card I've used all year. You could potentially move him down. Let's see how he goes. Next up, we've got Pink Diamond Cam. We all remember this. I'm going to put him in Legendary. The draft glitch. It was a great time for everyone. The fact that everyone pretty much got this card for so cheap was just such a huge W and such a huge talking moment as the year went on. Emerald Daquan Cook, again, just a limited demon. You know, had all the key badges on gold. He was an Emerald. Let's be honest, guys. He was a Ruby at worst. I think we're going to put him in... Let's put him in very memorable. I think that's where he belongs. Next up, we've got another game-defining card in Danny Ferry. Again, broke the game. Broke all of us. 2,000 games. Again, another base 98 demon. The first truly elite shot in the game. It has to be Danny Ferry. Yeah, it has to be game-defining. D-Rob now again, guys, this might surprise you. I'm absolutely putting D-Rob in game-defining. He was the first elite point center in the game, and I always say this, the end game truly comes when we get that point center that can do absolutely everything. Guys, this year, that was D-Rob. It was. He was game-defining. Everything we've had since has been a slight step up on where he was. D-Rob broke the game for sure. Next up, we've got Galaxy Opal D-Wade. Now, this was a really important card. Absolutely an argument for game-defining because he was the first card that really got everyone hooked on XP. He really was. People slept on Steph, and by the time they realized it was too late. People didn't want Blake, so they didn't really do it. D-Wade got the entire community doing level 40 for the rest of the year. He was that guy that started that. Is that game-defining? Probably. It probably is. I'm going to put him in Legendary for now, but there's a real argument for him to be in game-defining. Next up, we've got Felipe Lopez. I put him on this list because a lot of people liked the card, a lot of people ran the card. He was another limited demon. I didn't, guys, but I ran into him every other game for about 3 months. Obviously, a very popular card. Wasn't popular for me, but will be memorable for a lot of people. Next up, we've got Ruby Gus Williams. We remember how OP was this card. That speed at that time. He was unstoppable, guys. He was unstoppable. I'm somewhere between extremely memorable and very memorable. I'm going to go extremely memorable. He was such an exciting card when he came out, guys. Jack Marin. Now, this is a tough one for me because this is maybe an unpopular opinion. I don't know. The fact that him and Terry came out at the same time and Terry was the slightly better card kind of overshadowed this Jack Marin. If Terry didn't come out, he would have been here, guys. That's really where he would have been. But Terry took some of the shine off Jack Marin. He's going to be extremely memorable, I think. That's where he ended up. But he was really a victim of the fact that Terry was out at the same time. Next up, we've got another limited god. And again, people were running this guy in their main squads. This guy came out in a possessed set that had, like, Pink Diamond T-Mac in it. And people were running him. People were running him. I'm going to put him in very memorable. I think he belongs probably next to that Daquan Cook. But for sure, a memorable card. The next one is a tough one. It's Galaxy Opal Hondo. If you're a comp player, you're screaming at me to put him up here. But the truth is, most of us aren't. A lot of people didn't get this card. And, you know, shout out to Splash for making this card as legendary as it was. But in the grand scheme of things, guys, I think this is where he belongs. I don't think enough people had the card for him to be extremely memorable. 10,000 people watched the 250k. 15 million people download this game. To those 10,000 people, you know how good this card was. John Stockton, the Diamond. He was the only alternative really for Steph. He was an absolute beast for the time he came out. I think Legendary or extremely memorable. I'm going to put him in extremely memorable for now, but he's another one that could move up. Again, just everyone was running him. Whether you had Steph or not, he was either your starting point guard or off the bench. Everyone was running Stockton. He was amazing. Next up, we've got Ruby Jonathan Isaac. Again, another limited beast, the guy that you just switch the opponent's ball handler onto, and, you know, he plays the defense and gives you a chance of winning the game. I'm going to put him in very memorable for now. I think that's where he belongs. Kawhi is a tough one, guys. He was probably, like, the card that was used the most. He had the most longevity, I think, of any card in this game. I know people saying Danny Ferry, but it was Kawhi. I just don't know how much people are looking back on that card. I think people have forgotten how OP he was for the time. And I think because he was just good at everything and wasn't like elite at anything, you could argue his defense. I think he's kind of dropped off people's memories. I know Ty is fighting quite hard to keep this guy's memory alive, but I think he goes into Legendary. I think that's where he goes. Next up, we've got Kermit. Again, another TT offline reward that people fought for. I'm going to put him in memorable. I think the card was overhyped, to be honest, for the time. I think we just got used to TT offline rewards being amazing, and I think people overstated how good this Kermit was. Next up, we've got Ruby KPJ. He has to go to extremely memorable. Him and one other Ruby are probably guaranteed to be in most people's limited lineups every single week for this whole year. I would argue there isn't a card I've used more than KPJ, maybe one or two. But just in limited alone, he defines the whole game mode, that card. Next up, we got Pink Diamond Lonzo. Again, a bit of a 250k reference here, but again, he was just such an affordable point guard that was OP. He had good size for the time. He had a decent shot once they updated his jump shot. And again, a card that, you know, is memorable. I don't know how close he is to anywhere near game defining. I think that's where he belongs. He was memorable. Pink Eye Galaxy Opal Luca. Oh, it's a tough one. I think we go game defining. I think he was the first point guard with Pro 2, with an elite jump shot, with all the key badges. Pink Eye Luca has to be here. He also, you know, he really was the first card that people really started to badge up. So I think he defined that part of the game as well. And the fact that 2K gave him away for free, again, everyone used it. So I think he has to go into game defining. Invincible Luca is on this list because he was the best level 40 reward outside of probably Steph. I think he has to be on this list. Again, a card that people got. I know people that didn't do XP all year that did XP when this Luca came out. So he was definitely important. I want to say extremely memorable. I might have to start moving some of these down. Let's see how we go on. Pink Diamond Malik Sealy. Another card that punched above his weight. He's in one of the bottom two tiers, I think. I think people don't really remember him in the way that they should. He was very overpowered for the time he came out. Like, Jonathan Isaac had longevity because he was used in limited throughout the year. Malik kind of fell off a little bit, very similar to this Lonzo, but still a very memorable card. Remember, guys, all of these cards are memorable. Next up, we got Amethyst Matt Bonner. Guys, if this was purely my list, if it was pure bias, I'd put him up here. This guy's literally got me on 12-0 runs on his own. I think this card is amazing. You know, he had the 3 key Hoff badges. You know, as an Amethyst, he could compete with some of the best centers in the game. He came out at the same time as that Ben Simmons as well. I mean, he really was elite when he came out. I think he's been used a lot, again, in limited. I think people have used him for 12-0 runs. Don't know where he sits. I'm probably gonna have to say memorable. But I really want to put him above that. I'm going to put him in memorable, but I want to put him above that. Emerald Kabengele, again, the start of the year was the start of the year. We all wanted a center who could shoot, and he was that guy. It lasted 5 minutes, but he was very hyped for the time. Everyone got him. Everyone picked him up. Everyone ran him because he was, you know, 3 tokens or whatever. So, yeah, he has to be on this list. I'm going to put him at memorable. Next up, we've got Invincible Yao. Guys, this is going to be super controversial. He's the best card in the game. General consensus. But I'm putting him here. I'm going to put him here. And here's the reason. I think Yao last year was game defining. I think this was just a duplicate of that card. I don't think it's as game defining as it was last year. I think we've seen it before. I think with Ben, like I said, he has such an elite jump shot that I can move him up. But this Yao was, I mean, I know the meta's different. We were tweening last year. Now, you know, everyone's speed bursting on current gen. And, you know, he moves like a, you know, like a rocket on next gen. But I just don't think he is game defining. I don't think he is. I think he's the best card. I think that's fair. But he's the best card at a time where cards like Taco, Simbula, all of these cards exist. I don't think he is as game defining as people have said. So, yeah, he's coming there. Mo Bamba, another one of the, you know, the OP Rubies. I think he has to go next to his dynamic duo with Jonathan Isaac, and very, very memorable there. Nick Anderson. There's a lot of cards I could have used here. Eric Gordon, Markel Fultz. I was trying to think of like the OP Rubies back in the day. I think Nick Anderson was the best of them. It's one of these two. I'm just going to put it in memorable now because I think he was in a class with a lot of other cards that you could put on that list. Next up, we got Pink Diamond Batum. Again, a next-gen card. He was OP for the tier he was in. He was, you know, a very affordable, you know, good-sized point guard with a decent shot. He was a good card. Again, I think he was hyped up by a handful of content creators. I don't know why the community, if he was as popular. Next up, we've got Pink Diamond Paul Pierce. Guys, he has to go in here. This is a controversial take. I know it is. He has to go in here. I might have to move him down depending on what we've got coming up. He's probably the, you know, the least qualified to be in this tier, but right now he has to be. He's the only good unlimited reward we've had since Glenn Rice. This card was available on day 1, guys. Day 1. He was the best card in the game until Steph Curry came out, and then arguably he was the second best card in the game at that point onwards. The fact that he was actually available day 1, he also defined unlimited as a game mode. It was the first time people experienced it. He has to be. We all remember 250 and 0, you you know, from DBG, it was all this card. Defined stick shooting, defined an era of the game, and was by far the best card in the game for the first 4 or 5 weeks. How can we not put him in game defining? Next up, we've got Diamond Rudy. It's very similar to Malik Sealy, I think. I think Rudy was used a little bit more, though. I do believe that. I'm going to put him in very memorable. He's got a case to be up here. I think, like I said, cards like KPJ, John Stockton, I think these cards had a bit more longevity than this Rudy. It was a lot of fun, and he was, you know, he was a budget card that people used for a period of time. Next up, we've got another card who's in here for the wrong reasons, which is Galaxy Opal Russell Westbrook. Guys, we spoke about this card on the podcast more than any other card. We literally couldn't believe how bad this card is. And, you know, similar to Baron Davis, he defined the game in a way that, you know, we expected something amazing and just got something hugely underwhelming, which was just a pattern the whole year. Russell Westbrook is really, really up there with defining that aspect of the game mode. He's got to be one of these two, I think. I'm going to put him in very memorable for now, but again, for the wrong reasons. I think that tier is filled now. Might have to start moving some cards around. Next up, we've got Simbula. Guys, he's going in game defining because he is. He is, whether you realise it or not, the best budget card that's been released all year. This card right here was a million MT last week. This card was 20k. And he can hang. This is a skill gap. This is a skill gap, guys, right here. Simbula is the best budget card that's been released all year. Without question, he has to be in game defining. He has to be. Amethyst Sleepy Floyd. What amazing memories, guys, I have of this card. You know, I do miss it. I ran him in Unlimited recently, and he could still hang. He could still hang. We lost the game. It's probably his fault, but, you know, he was there. We know how fun this card was. Another card that kind of really defined badging up cards. He was one of the first cards we started to do that with. I think extremely memorable is where Sleepy needs to be. Next up, we've got Steph Curry. Absolutely game defining. Defined level 40 for the whole year. I'm now very aware that one of these cards needs to move down. I'm not sure who it's going to be. It might be Paul Pierce. But yeah, Steph has to be a game defining for obvious reasons. Taco as well. This is part of the reason Taco's in this. Again, like I said, Sim can kind of hang with Taco, but Taco was just really exciting. The time he came out, the spotlights were super exciting. People really, really wanted this card. He was on a level with the kind of Danny Ferries in terms of how desirable he was as a card. He has to be game defining, and those spotlights were just the talk of the community for like a month, so he has to be there. I'm going to have to move someone down, guys. I think it's going to be Paul Pierce. I'm really tempted to move Bol down, the Invincible, because of the card last year, but I'm going to move Paul Pierce down. He is legendary. I think that's fair, because this card has to go into game defining. Pink Diamond Terry absolutely broke the game, broke all of us trying to get him. I was very fortunate I got him in like 30 games, but some people didn't. The kind of race for 250 to get him. I mean, was there a more spoken about card this year? Is there a more game-defining card this year in terms of how hyped he was? No, I don't think there is. Now we've got Ruby Thaddeus Young. He has to go in the same tier as KPJ. He just has to. They are the two limited beasts. Again, all of us have used these cards countless times if you've had them. So what an amazing investment both of those cards were, KPJ and Thaddeus Young. But that base 98 Ruby absolutely has to be an extremely memorable. Tony's a tough one. Tony is a tough one. I think I'm going to put him... I think he can go into Legendary, or do I need to move someone up and put him in extremely memorable? I feel like I might have to. I will. I think I'll move Bill Russell up because those spotlights were hyped. Tony goes into extremely memorable. He was elite when he came out, guys. Absolutely elite, but I think we forgot about him very quickly. I don't think he's going to be remembered in the same way this Bill Russell will, so I think that's fair. Next up, we got Pink Diamond, Wayne Embry. The first, you know, amazing TT offline reward. He was so OP for the time he came out, guys. It was silly. The first card that we really went crazy for trying to get, you know, before the Terrys and the Dannys of the world. Wayne Embry absolutely has to go into Legendary. I've got Wilt on this list, guys. I'm going to put him in memorable. And the reason he's not higher than that is because the reason this card is on this list is that everyone that locked in for him is trying to forget it. This was a bad card, guys. He was outdated within 2 weeks and he was like a 1.5 million lock-in. Absolutely, you know, relevant, will be memorable. I always look back on Thon Maker last year as like a memorable card because that was the first card I locked in for and I've regretted it. Wilt is that Thon on steroids. I mean, it's bad. It is bad if you looked in for that card. He has to be on this list. And this has worked out perfectly because Diamond Zion absolutely is legendary. The card that stayed in my main team for the longest this year without question. Diamond Zion was elite. A bit of bias on current gen there. It really depends if you moved on to next gen early. If you did, the Zion maybe lost a bit of his value. But on current gen, which most of the players have been on all year, that Diamond Zion was legendary. Right, guys, I'm really happy with that list. Drop your comments below. Let me know what you think. As I said before, guys, if you haven't subbed, we're trying to get to 1100 before the game is out. Drop a sub, it will help us out massively. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Let me know what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. There's a lot of cards that came very close. I had a list of 100 and narrowed it down. Let me know what those cards were below. I know you will. Until next time, thanks for watching, guys.